Chosen one, you didn't come across these words by luck, by scroll, by chance. You were led here, guided by a current that moves beneath what the eyes can see. There is something inside you that called this moment into existence. It has always been there, breathing beneath your sorrow, glowing beneath your fatigue. And now it has risen. It has called this message into your life, not to entertain you, but to awaken you. You have forgotten who you are, not in the way of memory, but in the way of identity. Somewhere in the weight of being misunderstood, of holding on when no one held back, of waiting for the storm to pass while everyone else found shelter, you began to doubt. You began to think you were exposed, vulnerable, unprotected. But you were wrong. You were never without protection, not for a single moment, not for a single breath. Even in the coldest silences of your life, when prayers returned void and people turned their backs and blessings seemed to bypass your door, a great power stood behind the veil, watching, holding, blocking what would have broken you. Do you think you survived by coincidence? You carry something most people do not. A code, a seal, a covering. It's not in your titles, it's not in your talents, it's in your essence. You are not like the rest. You never were. You may have tried to shrink to fit their world. You may have dimmed your own light to make others comfortable. You may have walked away from parts of yourself just to keep peace that was never meant for you. But none of that changed the truth. You are wrapped in something sacred. You can't see it with your eyes, but your spirit knows. It's the reason danger always brushes past but never lands. It's the reason you've been spared from what should have destroyed you. It's the reason you can't explain why some losses felt like liberation, why some delays turned out to be protection in disguise. You are not unworthy. You are not forgotten. You are hidden not in neglect, but in divine security. You were concealed so you could be cultivated. You were delayed so you could be developed. You were isolated not as punishment, but as preservation. The ones who left didn't leave because you were lacking. They left because they couldn't enter the place you were being sent, and you weren't meant to take everyone with you. There is a circle around you. It cannot be drawn with chalk. It cannot be captured in photographs, but it is there, like fire that does not burn, like light that does not blind. It surrounds you when you sleep. It walks ahead of you when you rise. It shields you when you step into spaces that were not made for your spirit. You carry a force of protection, not because you are perfect, but because you are purposed. You are purposed, chosen one, and because of that you are feared, not by people, not by crowds, but by energies that move in silence, by the unseen forces that tremble at your awakening. The closer you get to remembering who you are, the more they try to confuse you. But confusion is the last trick they have left, and you're about to see through it. They've whispered lies to your heart. You're alone, you're weak, you're too late. But here you are, still standing, still breathing, still led back to truth. If you had not been covered, how would you have made it through the betrayal that nearly rewired your soul, through the storms that lasted years, through the tears that no one saw? How would you have made it if there wasn't something shielding your name, guarding your steps, speaking for you in realms beyond words? You didn't just survive, you were spared. What was meant to reach you didn't. What was sent to crush you, I missed. What they plotted in silence backfired before it bloomed, and it's not because you fought harder than anyone else. It's because your protection is not of this world. Your name was written in a language darkness cannot read. You are invisible to what was sent to harm you, not by chance, but by design. They don't understand why their plans fail when it comes. To you, they don't see the interception. They don't hear the spiritual alarms that ring every time a curse tries to latch onto your spirit. They can't comprehend why no weapon ever seems to prosper, because they cannot see what surrounds. But you, chosen one, you are beginning to see it now. This message is not a warning. It is a remembering. A remembering of the time you woke from a nightmare and felt a peace settle over you like a blanket. A remembering of that gut feeling that told you, don't go. And you listened, and something shifted. A remembering of the silence that wasn't empty, but holy. Do not mistake loneliness for abandonment. The ones who walk with divine fire are often led into wilderness, not to be broken, but to be branded. The fire doesn't come to consume you. It comes to confirm you, to seal you, to awaken your inner knowing that you were never just human. You were always covered. When people ghosted you, it was protection. When jobs fell through, it was redirection. When doors closed, it was preparation. Not when rejection was wasted, not one betrayal slipped past divine notice, not one night of tears was in vain. You are the chosen, not because you're better, not because you asked for it, but because your soul was designed for something bigger than survival. You were made for legacy, for purpose, for illumination, and that kind of destiny must be defended, even from yourself. That is why your intuition started screaming before the fall. That is why your peace started cracking in the presence of certain people. That is why things didn't feel right, even when they looked perfect. Your spirit knew what your eyes couldn't see. Your protection moved before your mind could explain. And now you're finally catching up to the truth. Have you ever felt protected, but couldn't explain why? That strange peace in the middle of chaos, that unshakable calm when everything seemed to fall apart. If this message reminded you of what your soul already knew, don't let it fade into the scroll. Leave a comment. I've always been covered. Now I understand why. Subscribe to this channel if your spirit is finally starting to remember what it was never supposed to forget. And like this video, if the silence in your life suddenly makes more sense, you're not alone. You never were. You are the storm that evil never saw coming. You are the flame that won't be smothered. You are the silence that breaks the curse. And no evil, not envy, not manipulation, not ancestral darkness can break what was sealed. Inside you, you were not built for defeat. You were built for divine disruption. You were not crafted for ease. You were created for elevation. And because of that, you are protected, now and forever. Chosen one. It wasn't rejection. It was protection, wearing a different face. You thought they turned away because you were unworthy. You assumed the silence meant you weren't seen, but now you must understand what your spirit has been trying to whisper all along. They didn't reject you. They couldn't reach you. You were hidden, covered by a force that doesn't shout, doesn't flash, doesn't explain. A force that moves in shadows, guiding your footsteps away from ruin dressed in opportunity, from affection disguised as entrapment, from friendships that glowed but carried decay. There was a layer around you, unseen, unbreakable, and because of that you were misunderstood. Do not mourn what left. Mourn only the time you spent doubting that it was meant to leave, because you were not sent into this world to be known by everyone. You were sent to be recognized only by what is true, and truth always arrives quietly, after the dust has settled, after the noise has failed to distract you. You were never abandoned. You were being filtered. Every detour you cried over was a reroute. Every exit that made no sense was an extraction. Every unanswered prayer was a spiritual interception, because there were things you asked for that would have fractured you. There were people you begged for who would have buried you, and you didn't see it then. How could you? You were looking with earthly eyes, but heaven saw the truth before it ever reached your door. Chosen one, you are. Surrounded by an energy that cannot be trespassed. It is why some people couldn't stay. Not because they didn't want to, but because they were denied entry. Your atmosphere disrupted their comfort. Your purity convicted their intentions. Your essence exposed what they worked hard to hide. So they blamed you. They misunderstood you. They left. And still you remained. You stood in the ruins with questions, but heaven stood in the ruins with answers. Answers that didn't come in words, but in survival. In the way you kept breathing, in the way you kept showing up, in the way you still searched for light even when every direction looked dim. You weren't supposed to break. You were supposed to bend, to curve around what would have crushed someone else. And you did, again and again. Not because you're made of stone, but because you are wrapped in sacred instruction. They tried to curse you, but their curses turned into blessings. They gossiped, but their words ricocheted. They plotted, but their plans dissolved like mist under morning sun. You've always felt the weight of invisible battles, the fatigue that doesn't match your actions, the sorrow that arrives without cause. That's not weakness, that's spiritual warfare. Not in the obvious sense, not demons in plain sight, but in the subtle, silent erosion of joy, in the cold undercurrent of despair when you should feel peace. But even then, even when darkness circled, it never touched you. Because what is sealed cannot be split, what is marked cannot be manipulated, and what is chosen cannot be corrupted. You carry a frequency that evil cannot endure. Your energy exposes every counterfeit. It shakes the masks loose. It burns through deception like fire through paper. That's why they were uncomfortable around you. That's why the rooms grew quiet when you entered. That's why some people betrayed you before you even gave them the chance. You are protected in ways you may never fully comprehend. Sometimes your protection will come as isolation, not because you're unlovable, but because your love is too precious to be mishandled. Sometimes your protection will come through delay, not because you're unworthy, but because what you're being prepared for must be timed with divine perfection. And sometimes your protection will come in the form of being invisible, not forgotten but shielded, out of sight from those who would drain you, diminish you, devour you. Chosen one, hear this deeply. They didn't reject you. They couldn't hold you. They were never meant to walk the path your soul was designed to endure. The heaviness you feel is not just emotional, it is spiritual compression, a sacred tension pulling you toward the next layer of becoming. And not everyone is meant to rise with you. Some were just chapters, not conclusions. Some were mirrors, not matches. Lessons, not lifelines. What you carry is rare. It is not explainable to the average mind. You've tried to articulate your journey, only to be met with blank stares and empty empathy. That's because this road wasn't designed to be understood by the masses. It was carved for one, for you. And it echoes with the footsteps of every chosen one who came before you, who bore the weight of being misunderstood until the time was fulfilled. Your time is approaching. The shift will not be loud, but it will be permanent. And when it comes, the ones who once turned from you will see what they could not see then, the covering, the reason you were untouched by what destroyed others, the reason you rose when everything around you collapsed, the reason you were kept. Your protection didn't begin when things got hard. It was there in your childhood tears, in the moments of speechless pain, in the long nights of begging for relief. It was there when you trusted the wrong people, when you stayed longer than you should have, when your intuition screamed but your heart whispered hope. Still it covered you. Still it whispered, not this, not yet, not them. It blocked what you didn't have the strength to walk away from. It rerouted what you tried to force. It softened the fall when you leapt without a net. You may think it's weakness to have needed that kind of help. But chosen one, it is proof of how deeply you are loved. You were never left to your own devices. You were always being watched, not by a force that judges, but by a presence that defends. And this presence, it doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need candles or chants. It doesn't wait for your perfection. It acts in silence. It corrects. In private, it restores without display. This is why your soul aches in certain places. It remembers what your mind forgot, that you're on holy ground, always, that your steps are not random, that your delays are divine, that your pain was never punishment, only purification. So when you feel like you've lost everything, pause and listen. You haven't lost. You've been pruned. You haven't been abandoned. You've been anointed. You haven't been overlooked. You've been protected. And that protection, chosen one, is not ending. It's expanding. It's reaching into your future, covering decisions you haven't made yet, battles you haven't fought yet, mistakes you haven't even imagined. It is eternal, layered, impenetrable, and as long as you walk in truth, not in perfection, but in alignment, nothing, and I mean nothing, can pierce what has been placed around you. You are not what happened to you. You are what was saved. In spite of it, you are the kept, the hidden, the guarded, and soon the world will know why. Chosen one, you have felt it all your life, haven't you? The tension that wraps itself around your chest like invisible wire. The unseen weight that presses on your shoulders, even when the room is empty. The battles that arrive not in the open, but in the silence. In dreams that shake your soul. In conversations that sting without logic. In atmospheres that shift the moment you step into them. And you've asked, if I'm protected, why am I attacked? Because the truth, chosen one, is not that the war ignored you. It's that you could not be conquered. You were attacked not because you were weak, but because you were marked. You were targeted not because you were vulnerable, but because something in you cannot be possessed, and darkness fears what it cannot claim. From a young age, you've drawn attention from forces most never encounter. You've felt watched. You've felt pursued. You felt confused about why things that should be simple seem harder for you, why peace feels temporary, why breakthroughs seem delayed. And now you're beginning to see the resistance was never random. It was strategic. Strategic because your life carries weight. You are not just a person. You are a frequency, a disruption, a force. You shake things, not with your voice, but with your presence. You expose things, not with accusation, but with your essence. And that essence is not ordinary. It is sacred. That is why the attacks were personal, not general hardship, not everyday troubles, but surgical strikes against your confidence, assaults on your identity. Precision blows to your faith, your hope, your clarity. Because if they could confuse you, they could delay you. If they could wound you, they could silence you. If they could tire you, they could distract you. But even in your weariness, you survived. Even in the fog, something in you kept reaching for light. Even when you gave up on people, you didn't give up on the possibility of peace. Even when your heart was shattered, you still believed in healing, and that is why you are feared. You do not break the way others. Do you bend? Yes. You bleed? Yes. But you rebuild in silence, you recover in sacred places, you rise again, even when no one is watching. Because chosen one, the battle wasn't against you. It was against what you carry. It was against your assignment. It was against your awakening. If you had stayed asleep, the attacks would have faded. If you had played small, the resistance would have calmed. If you had dimmed your fire, the air would have cleared. But you chose to remember. You chose to walk with awareness, to protect your peace, to reject what diluted your soul. And that decision, that alignment, triggered the backlash. The enemy does not rage against the unmarked. It rages against those who remember. You remembered your value, you remembered your light, you remembered your covering, and now the air around you trembles. You are not being punished. You are being forged. Each storm, each tear, each betrayal, they are not detours. They are sanctification. Your pain is not meaningless. It is alchemy. It is the pressure that polishes, the heat that purifies, the fire that clarifies. You are not the wound. You are the warrior it created. You didn't go through what you went through for decoration. You were being refined. The weapons didn't prosper, but they did prepare you. The trials didn't break you, but they did burn away the illusions. The attacks didn't end you, but they did expose what needed healing. And now Now you stand anointed, not by oil but by fire, not by title but by endurance, not by validation but by survival. You are not here because everything was easy. You are here because you were covered through what should have ended you, and that covering. It's not temporary, it's not conditional, it's not based on your mood or merit. It is eternal, a signature etched into your soul before time began, a stamp of divine origin. A declaration that no darkness has jurisdiction over your spirit. And that is why the attacks keep coming, because evil cannot touch you, but it wants to make you touch yourself, to self-sabotage, to self-doubt, to self-curse. It whispers, hoping you'll believe it. It waits, hoping you'll give it permission, but you must not. You must stand in the truth of your identity, even when your emotions waver. You must speak from the place of knowing, even when your feelings contradict it. You must trust the silence, because the silence is not empty. It is loaded with divine movement. There is an army moving on your behalf. You've felt them, in the moments when you should have collapsed but didn't, in the conversations that turned before disaster, in the coincidences that saved your soul. That wasn't luck, that was divine interference. Your enemies saw failure, but heaven saw foundation. Every loss taught you how to hold. Every delay taught you how to listen. Every closure taught you how to wait. You've become a temple of light, and temples are not left unguarded. So know, chosen one, you are not crazy for feeling like you're in a constant battle. You're not imagining the pressure. You're not overreacting to the tension. You are walking with a light that makes the shadows restless. And it is time to stop apologizing for that. Stop minimizing what you carry. Stop pretending your discernment is paranoia. Stop shrinking to protect the comfort of others. You weren't made for blending in. You were made for boundary breaking. You were made for visibility, not in the eyes of the crowd, but in the sight of heaven. And now is the time to walk like you're guarded, to speak like you're sealed, to move like you're immortal in mission, because you are. You are not just protected, you are chosen. You are appointed. You are armed with peace that confuses the wicked. And when the next wave comes, and it will, you will not collapse. You will not crumble. You will not vanish. You will anchor because you finally understand. The battle isn't a sign of failure. It is a sign of favor. And no evil, no jealousy, no envy, no spiritual attack can penetrate what has been shielded by eternity itself. You are not under threat. You are the threat, and the war that tried to end you has only made you indestructible. Chosen one. What you called failure was formation. What you mourned as rejection was redirection. What broke your heart open wasn't punishment. It was precision. You were never denied what belonged to you. You were protected from what could have destroyed you. You must understand this now, because too many nights you've cried over what never called you back. Too many days you've doubted your worth over doors that refused to open. Too many prayers have returned in silence. And in that silence, the enemy whispered lies. You are cursed, you are forgotten, you were never good enough. But none of that was true. You were hidden, guarded, lifted out of reach, not out of spite, but out of sacred foresight. You weren't withheld because you were unworthy. You were withheld because your destiny could not be entangled in what was never anointed to stay. The job that didn't last, it wasn't your failure. It was a trap disguised as stability. The love that didn't return, it wasn't your shortcoming. It was a collision avoided by angels, the opportunity that crumbled at the last minute. It was an ambush averted without your knowledge. Chosen one, your protection does not always come with warning signs. It moves quietly. It disrupts gently. It blocks with grace. You often won't see the intervention until long after the danger has passed. But when you look back, really look, you'll realize how many things should have gone wrong, but didn't. How many relationships were spared from betrayal. How many journeys were rerouted away from disaster. How many moments seemed empty, but were pregnant with deliverance. You are not unlucky. You are deeply covered, covered by timing, covered by wisdom, covered by a force that knows the end from the beginning. You think you're delayed, but you're being aligned. You think you're forgotten, but you're being refined. Because what you carry, what breathes in your spirit, cannot be housed in common places. It cannot flourish in contaminated soil. You are soil for divine things, and divine things require divine preparation. That is why some people disappeared without warning. They weren't pushed away. They were removed, not by force, but by incompatibility. Their energy could not resonate with what was blooming in you. Their intentions, no matter how subtle, could not intertwine with the light inside your bones. So they left, or you left, or something unseen pulled you apart, and in that separation there was sadness, but also sanctification, because your loneliness was never empty. It was a sanctuary, a pause, a holding place between chapters. You are not meant to be exposed during your formation. You are not meant to be understood during your elevation. You are not meant to be surrounded when you're shedding your skin. This is why the silence deepened before the shift. This is why the friendships thinned before the breakthrough. This is why everything felt tight, like something was pressing inward just before you expanded. Chosen one, your spiritual environment was being cleared. Not to punish you, but to prepare you, not to isolate you, but to insulate you, not to strip you, but to shield you. There are places you were never meant to enter, no matter how much you begged to be allowed in. And there are people who were never meant to go with you, no matter how much you loved them. Your path isn't personal, it's prophetic, and prophets do not walk the crowded road. They walk the road that curves through wilderness, past voices of doubt, away from validation, into the sound of divine instruction. So stop trying to reopen what heaven has sealed. Stop knocking on doors that were closed for your safety. Stop grieving what was never meant to carry your name. You've cried enough. Now it's time to understand. Every delay, every no, every vanished connection, it was for you, not against you. It was not a curse. It was clarity. It was not rejection. It was redirection to something higher, cleaner, truer, and though your mind may not have understood it at the time, your spirit always knew. That's why you kept waking up with hope, even after heartbreak. That's why you couldn't settle for less, even when you tried. That's why you felt a stirring, even in stillness, because something deep within you remembered. You are protected, and protected souls are not left to drift. They are guided, they are lifted, they are hidden, not to be overlooked, but to be revealed at the appointed time. So if you're still waiting, still wondering, still walking through unanswered prayers, take heart. Your protection has not expired. Your covering has not diminished. The delay is not your defeat. It is your defense. Even now, things are being orchestrated that your eyes cannot see. You are being positioned beyond the reach of those who meant harm. You are being planted in places no poison can reach. You are being aligned with moments that were written for you before the stars had names. And when it comes, when the opening arrives, you won't have to force it. You won't have to beg. For it will be effortless, natural, weightless, because it will be yours. And every door that once stayed shut will make sense. Every silence will echo with meaning. Every unanswered cry will be rewritten as divine timing. Because chosen one, you were never rejected, you were protected. Chosen one, it's not just that you're protected, it's that your protection overflows. You are not only shielded, you are a shield, a walking refuge, a carrier of frequencies that transform rooms, shift energies, break invisible chains. You've wondered why people cry in your presence, why animals calm when you're near, why children stare with ancient eyes. It's because something around you whispers, here there is safety. And they don't know why, but their spirit remembers. You've walked into situations that should have been volatile, yet they softened. You've spoken words that weren't rehearsed, yet they healed. You've simply been somewhere, and peace found its way back to that space. This is not coincidence. This is not your ego. This is your covering, radiating beyond the limits of your body. The energy surrounding you is not limited to you. It moves through you. It leaks into rooms, seeps into environments, enters hearts without permission. And not everyone understands it. That's why some people avoid you. That's why others cling. It's not about you. It's about what walks with you. You are a mirror, and mirrors make people uncomfortable when they're hiding from their reflection. Your silence unsettles the deceptive. Your honesty fractures the manipulative. Your light reveals the unspoken. That's why they pull away. That's why they gossip. That's why they label you as too intense, too sensitive, too much. But it was never too much. It was always too true. And truth does not apologize. You've been told to dim, to lower your tone, to soften your steps. But chosen one, your steps were never meant to be silent. They were meant to thunder in unseen realms. Your presence was never meant to disappear. It was meant to announce, without a word, that light has entered the atmosphere. You are disruption, not the kind that brings chaos. The kind that dismantles darkness. You shake what pretends to be still. You expose what masquerades as peace. You pierce what has hidden in shadows for too long. And for this, you've paid. You've been misunderstood. You've been excluded. You've been worn thin by energies that tried to drain what they could not duplicate. But still, you stood. And that standing is not ordinary. It's supernatural. It is not of your own strength. It is of the protection that walks beside you, speaks before you, stands behind you. Even in your collapse, you are covered. Even in your confusion, you are surrounded. Even when you don't believe, your protection still does. This is why things bounce off of you, not because they weren't launched with precision, but because your armor is woven in a language no weapon can decode. What curses try to attach, your shield converts into wisdom. What gossip tries to plant, your field uproots before it can take root. What jealousy tries to infect, your light sterilizes into dust. And this frustrates darkness because it cannot follow you into your frequency. It cannot hold on to you. It cannot seduce you the way it does others. You might feel tired, but you never fold. You might feel wounded, but you never rot. You might feel shaken, but you never sink. Your foundation is sealed. You were covered before you were ever conscious of it. In your infancy, when your cries went unheard by people, they were caught by heaven. In your silence, when your thoughts spiraled in pain, they were intercepted by divine patterns. In your worst decisions, when you should have collapsed, something unseen rerouted the fall, and now you begin to realize the protection was not passive. It was intervention. It was recalibration. It was leadership wrapped in invisibility. Chosen one, you walk in alignment even when your steps seem staggered. You are being led, not by logic, but by a current that overrides maps. That's why your life cannot be compared. That's why others cannot understand your path. That's why you must stop explaining, because what covers you also conceals you, not to isolate you, but to protect the instructions written on your spirit. There are blueprints sealed into your bones, assignments hidden behind your eyes, codes embedded in your voice. You are not here to follow. You are here to initiate, and that initiation, it began in your pain. Your tears baptized you. Your silence inducted you. Your losses were your coronation. You are not rising. You already rose. Now you are remembering what rose with you, and with that remembrance comes responsibility. This protection is not just to make you feel safe, it is to make others feel safe through you. It is to guard the sacred, to hold space for the broken, to activate the hidden in others. Your presence is a prayer, even when you're silent. Your energy is a sermon, even when you're still. Your gaze is a blessing, even when you say nothing at all, and the enemy knows this. That's why it's tried to quiet you. That's why it's tried to make you question your power. That's why it sent people to exhaust you, not because they were evil, but because they were unhealed. But you've learned. You've learned the difference between battle and bondage, between being drained and being designated, between being used and being anointed. And now you choose differently. You no longer let everyone close. You no longer shrink to keep peace. You no longer explain what cannot be explained, because your covering speaks for you now. It answers doors before you knock. It shuts gates before harm approaches. It prepares tables before enemies arrive, and those who once dismissed you, they will wonder how you made it. They will marvel at your peace. They will question why what stopped them never reached you. And the answer: you are not just blessed, you are protected, not just for you, but for what's coming through you. You never needed the thunder to believe the sky was moving. You never needed the vision to trust the veil was lifting. And now, here you are, at the edge of a realization that was never meant to be dramatic, but was always destined to be divine. This isn't the beginning of your protection. It's the moment you recognize it. You didn't just stumble upon safety. It followed you. It wrapped around you. It sang in a frequency so old, your bones remembered it before your mind did. And even now, as you walk with questions, there is an answer surrounding you. You are kept. Not because you've done everything right, but because before you could fall, something eternal decided you must rise. Before you could collapse, something unseen stood in place of your weakness, and that chosen one is the difference between those who merely endure and those who are preserved. You were never expected to fight your way through darkness. You were expected to remember that light does not scream. It simply shines, and that's what you've done, even when you didn't know it. You radiated in rooms that rejected you. You exhaled peace in spaces built for chaos. You walked into moments that felt like endings, and still, your presence made them pause, not because you were loud, but because what covers you cannot be denied, even by those who don't believe in it, especially by those who fear it. They tried, didn't they? To pierce what they didn't understand, to mimic what they didn't carry, to walk near you, not to join you, but to draw from you. But they found no entry, because protection doesn't ask for permission. It acts, it interferes, it interrupts. What was never meant to land. And you, chosen one, have been the beneficiary of interventions you will never fully know. Do you realize what didn't reach you? Do you know how many curses unraveled before they touched your name? How many false paths collapsed just seconds before your arrival? That was not coincidence. That was covenant, a promise etched in a realm you cannot see, but one that sees you constantly. And when you feel heavy now, when the air shifts and the atmosphere tightens, it's not attack, it's alignment. Your spirit is brushing against what once tried to break you. But this time, it cannot, because you're not the same. You no longer wait to be shown. You simply know. You no longer ask for proof. You listen for peace. And when peace doesn't answer, you do not enter. That alone has saved you more times than you'll ever know. You've become fluent in the language of discernment. You read the air before the words. You hear the fracture behind the tone. You feel the twist in energies that smile but don't surrender, and you trust it. That's protection too. Your intuition is not nervousness. It is sacred navigation, the ache in your chest, the whisper in your sleep, the shiver in calm rooms. These are not signs of fear. They are signals of presence. They tell you when to move, when to stay, when to release what looks right but feels wrong. Because chosen one, your covering is not passive, it's participatory. It works with your awareness. It strengthens your refusal. It supports your stillness. And that's why you cannot be touched, not truly, not deeply, not fatally. What was sent to fracture you now falls apart on impact, because your soul is armored with light, not performance, not noise, not reputation. Light, that which does not require applause to be powerful, that which does not bend for beauty, that which does not retreat in the face of mimicry. This is your inheritance. This is your design. And now you see what once chased you no longer can reach you, because you walk in a realm above reason. You make decisions from a place beyond logic. You say no without needing to explain. You say yes only when your spirit agrees. And this has become your shield. So let them wonder, let them study, let them circle the fire they cannot imitate. You are not guarded because you are fragile. You are guarded because you are a gate, a passage into something sacred, a reminder of what cannot be bought, faked, or borrowed. And as long as you remember who you are, no force, no shadow, no story can undo what was sealed before the beginning of time. You are not trying to become protected. You are walking proof that protection was always part of the plan. And now you walk without fear, because fear does not belong in temples that stand. And you, chosen one, you are the temple, and you will never fall.